right? Busy little bees, right? Buzzing around. That's what they want us to do. But when you can pull yourself away from that social construct and you can find what it is your true nature is of your calling, why you're here, there's a reason why you're here. The universe had every intention on seeing that come to fruition. It's not to take a vacation from life, it's to make a life that you don't need to take a vacation from, right? And so every day I'm living a life that I don't need a vacation. This is vacation for me. This whole life is a vacation for me, right? This is a soul journey. You know, it's like a Back to the Future moment, right? We all have that photograph that we're looking at, and things are vanishing in front of us, right? Like the greatest version of us, right? And everything that we do on a daily basis has to be, it's like success isn't permanent, right? It collects rent every day. Kintaro, you know, he actually saved my life, literally. The apartment trash can my brother and I lived in caught on fire, and then I see a dog unhappy, not fulfilled, because they're not being challenged for their food.
Right.
You know, challenge the dog for the food. Get him interested in working with you, and create that relationship. I don't believe in coincidence. You know, I believe you're put in a position to learn each and every day from each and every person and each and every interaction. So then you are ready to put yourself on display. Because once you go out there, you know, you better be ready, right? It's like the curtain's already back, and right, the whole audience is waiting. They got the popcorn, right?
Oh yeah.
And so, like, being in a city like this with us, this is like, it's the most unique place in the world.
It is. Boom. So yeah.
I can't trust no switching roadie. I be on my grown thing. Keep on moving, time be skipping, phone and going home. Same process, trust the progress. I be knowing where it's home. Man, free me, feel me, see me, I see. So yeah.
Long time coming.
So yeah, we got Chris in the crib. What's going on?
Sir.
Man?
What's
How you
up,
feeling,
brother?
yo? You good?
Living the dream, man.
Yes, man.
Living the dream.
Yo, I think it was cool every single time that I, walk, because every single time we're seeing each other, so we're always walking by. You're with your dogs, I'm with my dog, and it's just like, hey, like, what's up? It's always more like a high and by, but you leave your gems. You don't just like, yo, I gotta go, but I'll talk to you for a few moments. So I appreciate you for coming through, man.
As always.
And no, seriously, I really do. And there's a lot here that I want to talk to you about.
Sure.
Down to just your love for dogs, where it came from. The list will go on, but right now, just to keep it simple, what was your first dog?
So my first dog ever was a Springer Spaniel. I got him when I was 7 years old. My mom had him in a box, and the box started moving. It was my birthday, and out came a dog, and it literally, that sparked my love for dogs. And I just felt an instant connection with the dog, and just knowing that there was something like that was beyond what I could understand at that age, right? You know, how my relationship was with him. He was always following me. He was always looking for my, direction, and it just eventually, when I got to like being an adult, I said to myself, well, I need to do this again, and I need to replicate this. I had another dog when I was younger, in my earlier teens. We had a Rottweiler. And watching her actually have puppies was another beautiful experience.
Yeah.
To see the beauty, the miracle of life, and helping her raise those puppies till they were of age, to find homes.
Right.
That was also another like key moment in my life to said, you know what, like being with dogs is something that is just, it's so natural to me, and now that I have this chance and the opportunity to work with dogs as a profession, it's literally it's such a humble feeling to know that every day I wake up and I'm inspired and motivated every day to live out this dream that the universe gave me. Which is why it comes all across so apparent, like when we see each other, and that drive that I have. To excel, to be the best version of myself.
You're very disciplined when it comes to this. It's like it's part of your path. It really is, genuinely. You like when you see this guy in the streets, he's about his business, yo. He's about what he's saying, for real. I had the same experience with Tundra, right? She had puppies too.
Oh, did she?
Yup.
Wow.
And I carried them out, and I gave them to. All of them were good homes, and the one that I thought that was the best home, yo, they hurt me the most, bro. They hurt me the most, bro. I'm telling you, they had a crib in Long Island, a whole family unit. I'm thinking like, oh, that dog is good.
Set, right? Yeah.
That dog is good. A year and a half passes by. She's like, oh, you know, the dog bit me. I had to go see a dermatologist. And I didn't even go to a surgeon or anything.
Yeah.
A dermatologist. What was that little tiny
Like
abrasion?
a surface, yeah,
You know
like
what I mean?
maybe
Like,
a surface level.
But anyhow, I remember because I would follow them on Instagram. Never see them like with the dog. They're always there. Or they're always here. They're always, you know what I'm saying? In some other place. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, like, did I fuck up? No. But like in the moment,
sure,
you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like I know, but it. So get this. She's like, oh, do you know where we could find somewhere to get the dog, like dog home? I'm like, yo, it was Wednesday. I'll always remember this until the day I fucking die, bro. It was Wednesday. I was like, give me until the weekend. Let me try to find something out. You know what I'm saying? The next day I called because I hit up everyone that I knew. No, everyone was like, no. I was about to take the dog. I was like, yo, do you have a cage? I was like, hey, do they have a cage like for the dog? We put down the dog. The next day. Tell me you're gonna give me to the weekend, you know what I'm saying? Yo, that shit. And that was Tundra's firstborn. That was Tundra's firstborn, the one that looked like most like her. Bro, that shit tore me apart, bro. And it was so fucked up because I'm like, yo, I'm thinking that and that's why I'll never do it again. Cause you never know.
Yeah.
Cause you never know. Out of everyone that I gave a dog to, I was like super sure about them. And I was super wrong. like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
when you say
fuck,
that,
and everyone
I
else
feel
was
that.
great.
I
Everyone
feel
else
that
was
from
great.
you.
Everyone else was great though.
I feel that,
Like,
you know, with the Rottweiler, when she had her pup, Sajin, that was her name. When she had the puppies, it changed her. As a dog, it changed her, and possibly maybe a hip dysplasia or something from the having birth. She became very aggressive, and I remember vividly the day when I came home from school that day, and they put her down. They put her down because of the aggression, and so I never even had a chance to say goodbye to her.
Damn.
Yeah, so I came back home after school day, and I'll never forget. It was raining and everything. I remember running out of the house so mad, so angry, you know, like I have pictures at my house, and I'm in her doghouse with her, and like, you know, we were very close, you know, and to not being able to say goodbye, or to find something to where she could have a quality of life that maybe we weren't the right fit anymore, like with Tundra's dog, you know, her pup. We can only do so much, right? And so when things come out of our control, I learned from like a young age, like I can't blame myself. Like I can't hold myself accountable, right? I was too young to intervene, or you gave the best lives that you thought at the moment for those pups, right? And so if things didn't play out that way,
I even dropped down the price.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even care about the price. It was
Yeah.
like, I mean, like I care about the price because I'm putting like in money for like the food and everything like that. But I could have made the dogs like super super expensive. Nah, I just wanted them to go to good homes.
Yeah.
Like yo. And all of them, the rest of them are in great homes. Like I still keep in contact with them. They send me pictures, and it's like I'm seeing them grow up. You know.
Well, with your breed, with the Kane, you know, it's one of the more popular breeds now because of the looks and their intimidation factor. What they're
It's
capable
the guardian
of
of the home.
Of course, absolutely. Especially nowadays, the way the world is, having a dog like them. You really don't need ADT or nothing like that, right? You don't need no Ring camera. That's it, right? Like, you know, just the bark alone will deter anyone.
That's so true.
You know, a lot of times people get these dogs, and you know, they might be enthusiastic about it when they're puppies, but then as they get older, if they don't match that breed and the character and the personality of the dog, well, that's, you know what I mean? That's always something that is revealed in time, right?
It is.
You know, it's never
so
upfront. It's never upfront, because when they're puppies, they're you know, the purity and the innocence of the dog is there. You know, and we have that love, and we want to nurture that. But as far as the way we interact with dogs in the human world, it sets them up for those situations, because they're not meeting the dogs mentally and physically like the canine psychology, right? So they're not approaching it as a canine; they're approaching it as a human. So
emotional.
So when we give they're giving emotional leadership, right? And so when we bring dogs into our lives, we're asking them to live the way we live. So, but we also have to find common ground. We have to match the way that their breeds were bred and domesticated
Yes.
to do a job.
Yeah.
Right. So, even having a Cane Corso, they can't be a guard dog 100% of the time because that will lead to an imbalance. There's not balanced. Right. So like, I came into your house.
Right.
Tundra was very welcoming.
OD.
She didn't make me feel uncomfortable at all.
Yeah.
Right. So she is a Cane Corso, but
Right.
she's not a Cane Corso 100% of the time.
Right.
Which shows me that she has balance. If she feels that you're threatened or that the house is threatened or there's some type of reason for her to do what she needs to do in that regard, she'll do it.
I've noticed
You
though,
know?
like, cause I've had a couple friends over and like, yo, Fendi, he could say a couple stories or two, but like,
Well, sure.
no, but like,
Well, it's also what they come in with, right? If they come in,
yes, like that's really what it is all about. So like, it's always like the nervousness.
Sure.
If they're nervous or shy about like a big dog,
yeah.
they're gonna be like, oh, okay, nah. Like,
I remember one time I worked with a client and we were trying to work on having people coming into the house. They had a pit bull named Bullet, and I almost took a bullet, literally, well, figuratively
from Bullet.
Right. A bite from him.
Right.
So I worked with them once, and I started to try to build a relationship with this dog. Starting to build eye contact in the house. He was showing me that he was starting to warm up to me, and so days later they asked me if I could walk him, and I said sure. So I go in the house. Now there's nobody there, just the dog. So I go into the home, and he was not happy that I was there. And I could feel if I didn't have my breathing and my heart rate under control, and if I didn't put out like a vibe that I was afraid, he would have went after me.
Right.
He would have went after me.
Right.
He as I was walking away out of the door, I felt him grab the back of my like pant leg. So he was gonna bite me.
Right.
Like there was 100% a bite coming.
Right.
But because I was able to maintain my composure, even in that moment of stillness and the stiffness, right? I went back to the same area that I was working with him, and I dropped all the food that I had. He didn't care about that. All he cared about was me leaving, right? And he was not. He was basically just stalking my movement. So I had to walk very slow, non-confrontational,
Right.
and that was one of the first times that I ever felt that, okay, I have the ability to work with even the most extreme cases. Because if I made one wrong move, that was trouble for me.
Sheesh.
And there was no point where I could reason with the dog.
Right.
Because a dog doesn't rationalize the way we do.
No.
We have intelligence and we have instincts.
Right.
Dogs just have instincts.
Yeah.
They just do what comes natural.
What are you
to
moving?
them.
Huh?
They just do what comes natural to them, right? And so, for a dog like him, the only way to really fix that situation would be actually to take him out of that environment. I worked with another dog, a French bulldog, that almost did the same kind of behavior, not as extreme, not as life-threatening. The French bulldog. So I mean, they still have a capacity.
Yeah, Frenchies
but
are.
still have a capacity.
Oh, yeah.
They're tough as nails.
They are tough.
Oh yeah,
They're
but
going up to other big dogs
Yeah.
like they're big dogs.
and her name was Zuzu. Now Zuzu, I took her on as a client from my first job working with dogs, walking with dogs here in Astoria, and I took on Zuzu. Now Zuzu would not let me come in the house and leash her. Now that wasn't because of me. She felt comfortable with me. I even had private play date sessions with the dog with the client, and we're like, she loves me.
Right.
So what's happening when I'm coming in when you're not there? Why is she at now? She's putting the brakes on and saying, I don't trust you, or I don't want to walk with you. So whoever walked her previously took her out in such a way that left an impression on her. Well, I'll tell you what, they moved a couple avenues down on, I think, 36th Avenue. I was able to go in the house and get Zuzu out and walk her after that. Because something happened in that environment. So the environment caused this locking of the brain, where this ritual of coming to get her, to walk her, to take her out of the house became something she was no longer okay with. So the same thing with that dog that I mentioned before, Bullet. He would have to move, because then we could reset the situation. We could reset the brain.
Would you say that goes back to what you were saying earlier in terms of balance? Not enough balance?
There's something going on in that relationship that caused a rift, or a relationship that was established in that home that caused every other relationship to have that same pattern, right? Because all we did, same dog, still me. I'm the same person that I approached her as far as like relative to energy. Only thing changed was the environment. So sometimes even with us, nothing is needed more in life than a change of scene.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Absolutely.
when you change the scene, you can change the perspective.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's not only the perspective but the perception,
Mm-hmm.
because perception is reality, or at least that's what they tell us, right? But perspective is depending on how you've lived, you know, how you've walked and left your footprint in the world, right? And everybody has their own little mark that they
Yeah.
like to leave, right?
That's true.
So perception is reality, but that's almost like a forced reality. That's like a social construct, right? Like time. Like time doesn't exist. It's something
Yeah,
totally made up.
Man-made.
Totally made up, right? Like the calendar.
To keep us in structure.
Yes, to keep the bees buzzing and bringing and collecting honey. That's why they
Right.
call it worker bees, right? Busy little bees, right? Buzzing around. That's what they want us to do. But when you can pull yourself away from that social construct and you can find what it is your true nature is of your calling, why you're here,
Right.
there's a reason why you're here.
Yeah.
The universe had every intention on seeing that come to fruition. It's just up to us to break away from all of those constructs that we're talking about and to devote a life's purpose to it. You know, in the movie Batman Begins, when he's talking to Raj Al Ghul, when he's up there in the mountain, right? And he's like, I know the rage that drives you, you know? And he said, you know, if you can become more than just a man, you can do something else entirely. You can become legend. Whatever that is you want to do,
Right.
you can become legend in life. You can leave your mark.
Right.
Because after it's all said and done and we're shadows and dust, our names still remain,
That's true.
you know?
Yeah, but not everybody's name rings the same way, right? And
sure.
Yeah.
It's
true.
that little bit of extra that you do
Yeah.
to lead that extraordinary life, that larger than life persona,
Right.
right? And so, you know, I might not be the biggest guy in the world, but my energy
Carries through.
is larger than life.
Oh, yeah.
So when I walk into a room,
Yeah.
it's noted,
Right.
right? You know, it's like a beautiful woman in a red dress.
Yeah.
You can't help but admire it.
Yeah.
You can't help but be inspired by it.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
right. Moved.
I aspire to inspire.
Mm.
That's what I do,
Right.
right? In my life, the way I live, I give everybody that same energy so that they can take it and they can pay it forward.
Man, it's a beautiful thing because like it's something that keeps everybody going, right? If everyone were to feel that way and to have that type of energy, would be great. But the reality is, it's not like that, right? Like and like people are different. These these situations that will occur throughout your life are gonna test you, gonna test the limits, gonna test
Absolutely.
the words, gonna test everything,
Absolutely.
right? Like it's not something that comes so easy. I think that people when they go through certain things in their life, then they could come to this conclusion of like speaking how you are right now. But that it really does take the first few steps and keep on going through it, accepting for things for what they are, especially, and you gotta keep it going, man. Right?
You know, growth is really a trap.
Growth is really a trap.
Growth is a trap
What
because
do you mean?
because when something happens,
Mhm.
growth is immediately halted. So what's more important than growth itself is not the chasing of the growth.
Mhm.
It's the habits and the rituals and the daily disciplines
Yeah.
and the mindset
Right.
and the attitude.
Yeah.
That's what real growth is.
I love
Because
that.
because when
True.
you're watering a plant,
Right.
there's still growth happening, but you don't see it.
Mhm.
Right? It's happening under the surface.
Yeah.
So under your surface, under my surface,
Right.
it's the same principles,
Right.
right? So you have to water yourself daily.
Yep.
You have to feed yourself the right information.
Right.
You know, you can't be doom scrolling and looking for that dopamine hit.
Right.
You know, we have to enrich ourselves with what we read,
Mhm.
how we think, who we interact with.
Right.
You know, if you show me the 5 people around you
Right.
in your circle,
Yeah.
I'll show you the way you really think and feel in the world.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and you are the company you keep.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
and so growth being a trap is it's the illusion and the chasing of growth, which catches people. It catches you off guard
I see that.
because something inevitably, like you're saying, is going to happen. There's going to be events that happen that are out of our control, but growth still must maintain.
Yeah, but that's
You
why I
know?
said those are the moments that are gonna test you, right? Cause like in those moments, that's when everything. I remember there's been so many times in my life where I had friends be like, "Oh yeah, you say that, but I bet if you were in that situation, you wouldn't actually." And then I did. You know what I mean? Because I really am about what I say.
Sure.
But the thing is that not many people are. And then when you come across certain people that be like, "Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that," but then they don't do it. It's like, oh man, like. You're just like trying to perceive a certain thing, but you aren't. I don't see that at all. I feel like that is your character. I've always seen you through and through in that nature. You know what I mean? And you're always on the move, man. Like, would you say that Cesar Millan is probably one of your inspirations as well, or not?
You know, it's interesting hearing a name like that, even just being associated with me, and you know, so I humbly thank you for even just putting me in that same conversation or that same light. I've heard that a few times.
Yeah.
I'd feel in life, you know, there are a few great minds that are in certain industries that do change the industry, and if I can be considered in that same category, then that would be a great honor. It would be a privilege to work alongside of him, share conversation with him. You know, I've of course read and studied, you know, heard about his history and you know how he moved to America. You know, had nothing to him. You know, started working with dogs in Los Angeles.
Walking with 60 dogs.
Walking with 60 dogs. You know, doing grooming when nobody wanted to groom a particular dog. You know, I in a certain way we're similar because I have that same coming from nothing. You know, and that dream, that aspiration to create a life that I want to live every day. You know, it's not to take a vacation from life. It's to make a life that you don't need to take a vacation from. Right. And so every day I'm living a life that I don't need a vacation. This is vacation for me. This whole life is a vacation for me. Right. This is a soul journey. Right. And so when I do mention, you know, growth being a trap, I don't mean it in a way like a mouse trap, but I mean it like every day is a refinement and to master a particular thing, right? And so you master your thoughts, you master your attitude. Even when somebody's unkind and they're nasty to me, I still show them kindness. That's mastery. That's taking growth, because the old me might have snapped back.
Yeah, right.
Well, of course.
Right.
Nobody wants to, you know, feel like, you know, that they're put in a spot to, you know, uncomfortable. Like if somebody told you to go F yourself or something. When I'm riding my bike and somebody flings their car door open and almost hits me. Last year I got hit by a car, and I could have been a lot further gone. But thankfully the universe stepped in, got involved, you know, made sure that my dog didn't get hurt. She was riding on the bike with me. I took a car door in the neck. Right, the day after her birthday in June of last year, I got rushed to the ER. I had a hematoma in my neck, bruises all over my body. You know what I did the next day? I was walking dogs. Why? Because that's the attitude that I have. It doesn't matter. I still have 2 working legs, right? Okay. I had 1 good arm and 2 working legs. So I got my butt up and I walked the dogs.
Right.
And people are like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, "No. I'm just committed." And so one day when they do speak of me in that same kind of breath with Caesar, they're going to say that same thing. Be like, "You know what? Chris did what nobody else could do. I could have taken and used every reason to not do the work the next day. But you know what? That's not who I am. That's not why I'm here. Greatness doesn't take a day off because it's not feeling good."
Right.
You know, that doesn't mean I have moments of rest. Of course, that's important too. As hardworking as I am, I'm also mindful of self-care now.
You're about your chill.
And nobody taught me about self-care either. I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah, life.
You know?
When you go and at it for too hard and too long, it does creeps up on you.
You know, self-care is it. Well, it's like I used to live like I'll take care of like you for me, but now it's like I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for you. So that way we can take care of each other.
Right.
You know, I can't serve you if I'm not serving myself first. You know what I mean? And so you know, it's like when you're in the airplane and they say put the oxygen mask on you first.
Yeah.
You know, well, there's a reason, because it's like you can't help nobody else if you don't got no oxygen.
That's
If you feeling lightheaded, you're gonna pass out. Well, what good are you?
Yeah,
You know?
fuck out.
But you know, when you're in survival mode, like I was for as long as I was,
Right.
you know, and I did get hurt like that.
Mm-hmm.
There is no tomorrow. It's like Apollo Creed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Rocky's like, you know, getting his ass beat in the gym, in the boxing ring, and you know he's hooking him, he's giving him shot after shot, and then Rocky's just like, tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow. And what did Apollo say? There is no tomorrow, because there isn't. The only thing we have is the present moment.
So true.
You know, the past is a vehicle to learn from. It's that's where learning comes from, the past. You know, we don't want to relive the past.
Right.
We want to learn from it and take information from it to apply it to now. So that way it can shape and mold the future to a life that we want. You know, we can't future travel too much, and we always seem to worry about a result. But it, like I said, it's those habits and it's those disciplines. You know, it's like working out.
And a good result.
The delayed gratification. You know, we're missing that nowadays. You know, when we're growing up, we didn't have the internet so quickly.
Right.
You know, you had to call it like Domino's or something, right?
It was something
You know?
more to like aspire to have or work towards. I feel like you're right. We're living in an age of instant gratification.
Yeah.
So
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous, but then it's also, I think that it brings a level of like, let's see what you can do right now. Also, right? Because like people want to hustle. People are gonna get it. They're gonna realize that, okay, even if they try to get it fast, in time it will show that the people that would get it fast, it won't work. And then in time it will also show the people that gradually took their steps to earn it does work. And you know, it just needs a little bit of time. People are gonna fall within the gaps of like the people that make it seem easy, and people are gonna it's. But I feel like it's always kind of been that way, right? Like people have always people have been taking steroids for a long time. You know what I'm saying?
Try to cheat your way to the top. You know?
Yeah. People have been doing a lot of like bullshit like that. But I mean, and then people have their different opinions on that as well. So it's like, what are you gonna do about it? I think that that's why it kind of goes back to what you were saying, like in time, you know, because in time, all of that will show, you know, no matter what.
You know, the success from the having the long road is not always necessarily the wrong road. Getting to where you need to go is not linear, right? So it's not like you want to get to A to B, so you go in a straight line. There's lots of winding parts to it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's intricacies and things that...
You bring up a great point.
Yeah.
I saw this diagram, right?
Okay.
Of like somebody was explaining how, let's say if somebody was in the ocean, right? And you're here diagonal from them, and they're drowning, and that's your best friend. They're drowning. You're gonna save them. A lot of people would just say, all right, let's just go straight that way. You just go straight to there. But you're actually gonna end up swimming more than if you go in a right angle,
right,
and then go down.
Could go with the current.
Yeah,
because you gotta find out which way they're drifting.
Right, which is kind of, I feel like it's relating to what you're saying here, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of just like looking at whatever it is your result or your grand like scheme of whatever it is you want of life, instead of looking at it diagonal, look at it from an angle that you can actually make it.
Well, because we're setting ourselves up to fail if we think it's just so linear. Yeah, life is not linear
ever. So
it's never been linear.
Never.
You know.
Yeah.
It's like, who were you before you were born?
Yeah.
You know. And are you who they say you are? When you were a child, you knew exactly who you were. I knew exactly who I was. But then they started putting all these things on you to make you think and feel and believe a certain thing. And then it's either up to you either to accept that or to reject it.
Right.
Or to use that to your advantage. It's like with Neo, right? Neo in the Matrix. When the Oracle said, well, you're not the one. Sorry, kid. Maybe in another lifetime, right? And then what happened? He was in that hallway, and then Agent Smith shot him up, right? Swiss cheesed him, right? And then the love from Trinity resurrected him in a way. It's like the Christ. So Neo is like Christ, right?
In the movie,
And he was
right?
and he rose up and he was born again.
Right.
And so that was the life that where he was the one.
The next life.
Correct.
Right.
Right. So
Ain't that some shit?
Your
I
spirit-
don't think nobody caught that.
your spirit and your soul, this is not the first path it's been on. It's not the first journey, right? There's many multiple journeys in a soul. You know, your soul is a vessel for this body at this point in time in life. That's what it is, right? And it's up to us to align with that vibration and that frequency, so that when you do, it's like Marky Mark, you know, feel the vibrations, right? You know, it's like what you said, one of the first things you said. It's like when you see me, you can just feel it, right? You just know it, right? It's self-evident, right? It's the way I carry myself, right? So it's like the reason why I have so much gray hair. It's from the wisdom, right? And so wisdom is not something that you can attain without having experience, right? So nobody, when we're all born, we have zero wisdom. Nobody has any wisdom or knowledge or experience, right? And so you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations time and time again until you learn to live in that mindset, so that the uncomfortable is now comfortable, right? So a lot of people try to run away from stress, right? They say stress is bad. No. Stress is necessary.
Yep.
It's necessary for your human journey, for your spiritual journey. It's necessary for your soul to stress it, so that you can use that information and that wisdom to share it with others and to inspire others. You know, when I meet people, it's usually for one or two reasons. It's either inspiration or desperation. All right. So when people approach me and they have, you know, relationship problems with their dogs, they're desperate. They're looking for answers, right? Or they see what I can do and they're like, wow, I want that.
Yeah.
But they're looking at a result. They don't know, and I don't place blame on them for not knowing any better, but they might be asking for something that they might not be able to do on their own. But I will always stand by my clients and help them, or people that I see on the street. You know, me having my pack next to you in Tundra, a lot of people would say, they would judge.
Right.
I don't judge.
That's so true.
Well, if they're judging with their eyes in order to see, they're not using their mind for insight.
The senses.
So things you see with your eyes is called sight, and things you see with your mind is called insight. So I always try to use my mind to see. I have to wear glasses. I can't see good anyway. So for me to just use my eyes to make split-second decisions it'd probably be selling myself short in a lot of instances, right? I might be missing out on some really great people.
Absolutely.
Right? So, you know, like when I have my dogs and I met you for the first time, you know, I don't judge. Even if she was a little uncomfortable or my dogs were a little uncomfortable, it's a new thing. Anything new is going to be uncomfortable at first.
Absolutely.
But we've seen each other a few times, and we walked with the girls a few different times, and they're all good with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, if people just gave themselves the chance and took advantage of the opportunity the universe gives them, there's signs everywhere.
Absolutely.
There's signs everywhere, right? The street that I live on and the address that I live on is actually my birthday. Backwards. Yeah. Did I plan that? Is that coincidence? No. There's no such thing as coincidence.
Right.
It's the universe showing me through numerology that I am where I'm supposed to be.
I love that. One time, not too long ago, we did this music video on 37. We chose 37th Street, but I was like, I don't know why it looked perfect for me, right? I was like, this is the one. What's 37 in numerology? 1. 3, 7, 7, 5 to 1. You know, because they always cut out the 0, but like 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is some, if you're paying attention, you can see it. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
You have to, you know, your mind, it's like a parachute. You know, it won't work unless it's open.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And because we live in an information, you know, super technology era in life, right? The 21st century, you know, smartphones, right? But so much time is invested in the screen that we forget to like really use our senses, right? And so, when I'm working out there or I'm out and about in the world, I always have my phone on Do Not Disturb. Why? Because I want to control the information that's coming from that thing so that I can be open for everything else.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, what happens if, you get a message and it throws your whole vibe off? But you got something that you're planning on doing, and then it's like, oh, but now you're like in two different places.
Yeah.
You're
not there where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Growing up, we used to have pagers, right? Or, you got to go to a payphone. I remember, talking to, chicks on the payphone for, till the quarter ran out.
Right.
But, it's then you get to have a chance to use, like, your creativity. And you have to really, really think about how you're doing things. You have to spend your time wisely.
Right. We
don't do that anymore. We foolishly throw it away. You can't create more time, but you can create more value in your life.
Yeah.
It's just how do you spend your time?
Yeah.
What do you do? Everyone says, I don't have enough time. And it's like, well, how much Netflix do you watch?
Yeah.
Or,
exactly.
you go to brunch every weekend, right? You spend 2
can
hours.
Make time. Yeah.
Yes.
People don't make time.
Time is a terrible thing to waste.
Right.
It's actually the only thing to waste. Time. Because it's
continuously.
Well, right. So, if I'm going to waste anything, it's going to be time. Because money I can always make more of, but I can't make more time. So whatever time I do spend, it better be towards goals and the vision in life that I want to live and the dream scenario, which is to be financially stable,
right.
to have a job that I can be proud to do every day, that doesn't feel like work.
Right.
If you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life.
That's true.
And so when I'm working with the dogs, it's not work to me. Now I walk 10, 12, 13 miles a day sometimes, maybe even more. That's not work. Every day I get a chance to do that, I'm doing like a Goggins marathon every day. You know what I mean? I walk like thousands of miles a year, right? But the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And so when I walk further than anyone else with dogs, then my name will last forever because I'm going to that place, to the top of that mountain where there's not many people. So it's like when I meet you and I see you and you come into the scene, I can relate to that energy because I share that energy. Right. So, you could say metaphorically, if you were climbing a mountain and you hadn't seen anyone for days.
And I was like, yo, bro.
and then you see the orange, the hoodie or my orange shirt, because that's the brand, right? Orange is my logo for my business and whatnot.
Right.
And I always wear a piece of orange because of my oldest dog. Right. So orange is always going to be a part of that's my warm color. Orange is a color of warmth. Right. And so that's where my energy is. It's a warm love. Right. It's an embracing energy, right? And so if you see me on that mountain, you're going to acknowledge, like, wow, I ain't seen anybody in days, right? I thought I was up here all by myself. And then you see me in the distance, right? And you give me that little bit of an acknowledgement, right? And so you can say that you have gone where no one else can really go. Right. And so you have to be able to relate to that when you see other people like in that kind of context, right? So, when I meet people like that, I try to spend as much time with them. I try to learn from them because those are the people that I want to not be the smartest person in the room.
Absolutely.
I want to be challenged in that way.
Yeah.
Right. Not in a confrontational way, but a challenge, challenge my mind, challenge the wisdom that I have, and share that with me too. And maybe I'll learn a thing or two.
Absolutely. That's why I love this podcast. I have a bunch of different walks of life that I've spoken to. This is gonna be my I think 109th or 110th podcast.
That's incredible.
And I've been doing it for over.
It's amazing.
Thank you, bro. I've been doing it for over 2 years now. I've dropped one podcast every single week for those 2 years. I haven't stopped. Yeah, but that's I've always said this: consistency to see my capacity. You know what I mean? Because how else are you going to see your capacity? And we are capable of a lot, but you're not going to know it if you're not consistent.
Greatness is within all of us.
Yeah.
From the moment that you were born, that in itself is a miracle.
Amazing, right? You won.
The mere fact that you were the one.
Well, billions probably.
The mere fact that you were the one that was conceived. It's almost as if, were you the glimmer in your dad's eye? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe you willed yourself into this universe.
Right.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Like, I'm
playful
making it.
thought,
Mhm.
right? You know, it's like, you know, well, they would say, well, like, well, you look like your dad. Well, maybe I'm the one who created that. Maybe I got him to meet my mother and have that moment of passion and romance. Who knows? I would like to think they had a good time in creating me,
Right.
you know? But it's like as if, you know, it's like a Back to the Future moment, right?
Mhm.
We all have that photograph that we're looking at, and things are vanishing in front of us, right? Like the greatest version of us, right? And everything that we do on a daily basis has to be. It's like success isn't permanent, right? It collects rent every day,
Yo, I fucking like that
every
one.
single day,
I like that one.
every single
That's a good
day,
one.
every single day. Success is collecting rent.
That's true.
Okay. And so that means that, yeah, sure, you can have a cheat day, you can have a rest day, you can have these things, but habits are very easy to form and hard to break.
Yeah.
Very easy to form,
Form and
hard to break. All right. And so, you know, I see, you know, I'm saying that from experience too. I used to smoke cigarettes and all this other stuff, you know. You know, you fall into that social pressure and, you know, you're doing things like that. But you know what? When you have the discipline of your own body and your own impulses and you can put a stop to it, now you're omnipotent. You're omnipotent. You have this holy creator power in you. It's like, wow, I can stop that. Nicotine's like one of the most addictive substances on the planet. And you can say no more. Wow. What else could you do? You know, you could move mountains.
Right.
You know, you can move the mountains in your own life, or you can climb them. You know, we don't get mad at a hill for being a hill. You want it to go up.
Right.
Well, it helped to go up. But we don't curse at it and say, oh, you're just some hill. If you want to climb, you cannot drift. In life, the only way to get to the top is to climb. And every day it's going to be harder than the next.
So
Every single day.
Very
It
true.
will never be easy. And when it is easy and when people do acknowledge you, you know what they will say? Congratulations.
Right.
But you know what? Success, it's like being pregnant.
If that.
Well, because they don't know how many times you had to get fucked
Yeah.
to get that congratulations. Right? So when, you know, for example, 2 years ago, I was on the front page of the local newspaper, right? The Long Island City Journal.
Right.
They did a whole story on me, and it wasn't even planned. I did there was a blog, right? It's called A Story of Characters. So somebody reached out to me and said, wow, I'd love to do an interview with you. And I said, sure, it'd be fun. You know, let's talk about life. You know, let's talk about where we are and, you know, where we want to go and all these things. And then a couple days later, I get a message that says, oh, by the way, the Long Island City Journal just found your story and they're running it on the front page. I was like, whoa, no way. And I was on the way to go getting my tattoo.
Oh, wow. What'd you get?
So this tattoo is from The Karate Kid. This is the year I was born, 1984. So I love movies from 1984.
Yeah.
This is the scene where Mr. Miyagi is on the beach and he's doing the crane kick for the first time.
Okay.
And so Daniel's looking at him, and the music and everything is so the you know, ambience is beautiful. Like I listen to that music all the time when I want to take myself mentally out of a space. I'll put on music from like Karate Kid or like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
And, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only kind of music I really listen to nowadays
Yeah?
because, well, it has no words.
Right.
It's so beautiful it doesn't need words.
Yeah, you ever heard of FKJ?
No.
I feel like you would like FKJ.
I'm gonna check him out later on today.
Nah, you would really like FKJ.
And so this part in the movie is where Daniel finally realizes that, you know, Mr. Miyagi is he's so wise and he's got all this skill in karate and he's looking at him in awe and he's just seeing him doing this beautiful technique and the birds are flying and it sets the whole rest of the film up, right? And so what it represents to me is balance. Because for the first time in my life when I got this tattoo, I had balance. I had total balance. Because getting that tattoo, now it's a sign. Well, not only because of how expensive it was, right? Because I could afford it, but mentally and spiritually, the universe gave me this because I proved to not only myself but to the universe that I am who I say I am, and that I was rewarded with the tattoo. So the balance that this tattoo represents, every day I get to look at it and know from that moment on, my life has balance. And then it goes not only in my personal life, but in my professional life too.
That's interesting. I had recently just had a tattoo artist on the podcast too, where he also explained how one of the tattoos he got on his neck was like a transitional period as well. And it's like, it was almost like he needed to get it, you know? And it's interesting how like people, because you're doing it to yourself, right? You're causing the pain to yourself.
Sure.
And it's also, at the same time, and I love tattoos, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting dynamic for us to think of it as a gift, but we're causing pain to ourselves. But how he explained it, he's like, I worked hard for this tattoo. I'm gonna get, I have to go through the pain to get it. I have to earn it. You know what I mean? It's like,
sure.
I'm like, that is there is a factor to that. He's like, fuck the numbing cream. That's for totos.
Yeah. For me, I do it completely sound mind and body. Right. I will sit there and go through that journey because I want to feel every moment of that trip of the tattoo from the beginning till it's
and the wrist is no joke. That hurts.
Oh yeah,
that's sensitive skin.
I have, there was one tattoo for my birthday every year I would get tattooed, and I have my whole back done, and it was done in 6 hours by 2 different artists at the same time.
So one side,
yes.
Oh
and
man.
So talk about a sensory overload,
right?
Where you can't really focus on which one is going because
you
they're all
got
going
nerves on your back.
Yeah,
you're feeling it in different places.
But going through that made me feel even more in tune with myself because I had to rein it in, right? Not just the physical pain, but the mental side of it, right? So going through a tattoo, when I say like we earned it, it's like you mentally earn it and you physically earn it at the same time, and then it spiritually aligns with who you are, and it's an identifier of who you are, or at least that's what I get tattoos for. It tells the story of me.
Yeah,
you know, it's a representation of me.
Absolutely.
It's like
it's
actually, you mentioning the neck tattoo, in 2 weeks I'm actually getting a neck tattoo.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. What are you getting, bro?
So I'm getting.
He said yeah.
so well, it's a big one for me because it's very obviously it's visual.
There.
It's
there.
visual.
It's there.
I have to love
move.
it. Yeah,
right.
It's a big move.
Yeah.
I feel in life I'm at the point of no return.
Yeah.
Where I'm not worried about anyone's judgment towards me.
Fuck 'em.
And the dogs don't care about tattoos anyway.
Right.
They're not looking at me saying, "Oh, you got a neck tattoo."
Yeah.
So I'm getting my oldest dog who passed away. I'm getting his paw print tattooed on me.
Dope.
And I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna do it in like a puzzle piece. So like a missing puzzle piece, and I'm gonna have his paw, and then it's gonna have his his birthday and his past day.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
And one of my good friends, he's an incredible tattoo artist. He's gonna do it. We already got it booked. I'm really excited for it. It's gonna help me in the healing process as well. Because losing him last fall was one of the most difficult things that I ever have experienced in my life. It tested me like no other. The last 2 years was
out of any dog you've ever had.
Oh yeah, no, Kintaro. He actually saved my life. Literally, the apartment trash can my brother and I lived in caught on fire, and he woke me up. I was sleeping on the couch, and he woke me up in the middle of the night, and without him waking me up, I would have never gotten up. The whole apartment was full of smoke. The whole place. I couldn't see even my hand. So what happened? The trash was in the bathroom, and it was a metal trash can, and so it burned all that paper and everything that was in there, and it just filled the whole place.
Oh, shit.
And without him waking me up, I wouldn't be here.
You guys lost everything?
No, because the way the trash can contained the fire, because it was like a metal trash can, so it just burned everything and just stayed, and it was a small enough trash can to where the fire just basically it was the smoke that would have did me in.
Right.
The fire never does it. It's always the smoke. And so I remember that night like it was yesterday. And I remember waking up and hearing him and those cries and that plea, like he's danger, right? And I actually got up and I kind of felt really discombobulated. And I almost went back down And when I almost went back down, I kind of felt like my spirit leaving my body, right? I had a near-death experience to the point where I felt the sensation of death, right? And it was like as if something just snapped inside of me and said, if you lay down, you're never getting up. And I felt the retraction and my soul came back in, and then I immediately instinctively got to the ground to try to get air because I wasn't breathing air for I don't even know how long.
Right, you were sleeping
for minutes at a time.
Who knows?
Who knows how long I was breathing in that smoke. And once I got on the ground, I was able to get air and try to get my wits. And the apartment, thankfully, it's a small little basement apartment, so I didn't have far to go.
Yeah.
And I just went to where the door was, and I was able to open it because the bathroom was in the opposite side of the house.
Wow.
So, and I got him, and we got out there. Fire department came and all that. They were like, man, like you don't even know how lucky you are, And it's like ever since that moment, it was like I'll go back to what we were talking about with the Neo moment, Like maybe I wasn't the one in my first life, but I'm not on my first life anymore. I already got a second chance.
I feel that.
I'm on borrowed time.
Right.
I already know how valuable it is because I've felt it. And there's of course been other really big physical, trauma like car accidents and stuff like that, very, very near death experiences. But that one in particular changed everything for me because it gave me that moment of realization that how precious my time is here and how much the universe has invested in me and that needs to see me fulfill that purpose. That's why I live the way I live, because the purpose that the universe gave me, I now understand what it is. It's to work with people and to bring them and their dogs in harmony and create that relationship, that bond. The same one I had with Kintaro. And like I said, without him, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And he did the greatest act of service. He did one more job. He thought he was retired at 14, and then I brought home my young Kitana, my girl.
Yeah.
And he took her in and put her on, under his wing and showed her everything. Everything.
Nice.
He set her up, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's what's up.
When everyone sees
That's what's
her, they're like, wow.
Got a piece of him.
And it's him.
Right.
His impact.
Yeah.
His teachings to her.
Like, you gotta be this way. Like, yeah.
I'm forever grateful.
Wow. Yeah.
He taught her how to be a dog.
Nice.
Before I could even get involved.
I know that's a little bit too much of a head, and probably that's like not my place to ask.
Oh, go ahead, ask away.
But do you feel like you're gonna keep on doing that cycle?
You know
what I'm saying?
Having two dogs at once
Mm-hmm.
for the last 2 years up until October, it was the greatest 2 years of my life. I felt like I was ready for having a family, because I was living on my own for a couple years, from 2020 on until just last year. My brother moved back in. And I was on my own. So having the two dogs, it finally made me feel complete, And so it's been difficult to not have two. I feel like at some point I will bring home another one, another boy, another male.
Are you sticking with the same breed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Shiba Inu is my breed.
Shiba Inu, that's what I was about to say. Like, they have and that isn't, they don't bark, right? It's like a yodel.
Interesting that you say that. There is the Shiba scream that I've heard, and online, you see it a lot.
Like that thing with the fire, like was he like screaming?
So that could have been probably that could have been as close as to what I heard. I never heard him do it like on a daily basis or any other
They're
moments.
Quiet, right?
They are for the most part. Kitana is very confident and she is very sure of herself. And she definitely is vocal. So she kind of goes against that whole grain. I think it's because of her confidence and her ability as the way she is as a dog, like her character, right? She's very, very sure of herself, which is great. I think it's harder to work with a dog that has no confidence because that can be unpredictable. A dog that has supreme confidence, I can work with that because I know how to work a dog's mind that way. But when you have to bring up a dog, it's harder because they're already shelled in. So you have to kind of be more enthusiastic in what you do to try to break them out of that shell, right? And so working with dogs that are really intelligent, is harder too, because you have to be more creative in what you do. You know, most dogs are just very simple, you know, like food or something like that.
When you say creative, is that they get bored or like what?
Yeah,
right.
So it, you know, it's like somebody that's like, you know, a whiz kid in school, you know, that they need a teacher that encourages them to use their mind in a way.
I'm not in algebra. I'm on calculus.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember growing up in school having teachers that just were flat out snooze fests, and I didn't do good in those classes.
totally understand.
But then there was teachers that approached the subject in a way that made me feel like, wow, okay. Even if I didn't care, like geography or you know, social studies or, you know, any of those subjects that you know, the teachers inspired a thought from me. It made me want to learn. So working with dogs, it's almost the same way. You have to challenge them mentally. So like even yesterday, I had Kitana going on the rocks down near Astoria Park, and I'm pointing at the rocks and she's jumping on different rocks, different terrains, using the muscles in her legs.
Nice.
And she has to use her balance and coordination because it's not flat ground. You know, we live in the city. So they're walking flat plains all the time. So to have a dog challenged by, you know, learning how to adjust to being on a smaller surface area and rocks and using that kind of agility, it really brings the best out of them, right? So I'm always looking for like obstacle things, you know, trying to get creative with the environment, you know. And you know, I found that many dogs that I work with, they benefit from that greatly, because a lot of the breeds that I work with are like working class, you know, like Australian Shepherds or you know, there's like racehorse dogs, you know, greyhounds, all these things, right? And it's like, well, we don't really have, you know, tracks or sheep to herd, right? So it's like, well, what do we do? You know, we gotta get creative. Like, so I'll have them running with me on my bike.
Oh, you saw the video of the guy? I think he was like an Asian dude, if I'm not mistaken, but it could have been, I don't know, whatever. He had 2 huskies, and he was riding them like through the streets like if there were sleds.
Really?
Yeah.
So there you go. You know,
that was awesome to see. I'm not gonna lie. I think he was on rollerblades or something.
Working with these, you know, working with these types of breeds, especially in the you know, a city setting, you know, it's tough for them. You know, to live in 4 walls, and that's almost, you know, some people tell me, like I say, how many times does your dog eat a day? And they'll be like, well, they eat breakfast and dinner, and you know, we have snacks and treats, and I'm like, well, I mean, that seems like a really retired life. You know, there's no work motivation for a dog in that way, right? So, you know, and then I see a dog unhappy, not fulfilled, because they're not being challenged for their food. You know, challenge the dog for the food. Get him interested in working with you, and create that relationship of like, okay, if you just follow me and just do this job that I set in front of you, then you get paid, right? And so it's like us, you know, you do a job, you get paid, right? So it's like, you know, even the whole work from home thing, that breeds like a laziness in life, you know? And so, of course, you know, back in a couple of years ago, it was like kind of like what everyone was trying to do. I understand it. But now we're at a point where I think everything should go back to like working in the environments that create a culture of work, you know? And, you know, thankfully, working with the dogs, I'm always outside, right? So I don't have to worry about being like, you know, clustered in with a lot of people.
Well, for me, like I would like to work from home just so I could be with my dog more.
This
like,
is true.
That's the only thing. So if like let's say if I'm on my break, then I could like, it's like if I'm at break at work, I can't go home to like walk my dog real quick. But if I'm on break, I'm already home. I could like, you know, take her out real quick, come back. You know what I mean? Like that would be lit.
The hardest thing for a dog is to be away from its human.
Yeah.
So I understand what you mean by that, you know, because us leaving them is not natural to them, right? So, you know, dogs will stay with the whole pack, the whole life.
Yeah.
Aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, all live together their whole lives, right? And so for us to even go away for 6 to 8 hours at a time, it's really unnatural for them.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of dogs, I understand if they get distressed about that. It's also healthy for them on the same side, though.
To have that space isolation.
They need to have time by themselves, too. Because it's like your dog is one dog with you, and then your dog is another dog with like your mom or your grandma or something like that, and then your dog is another different type of dog when it's around its own kind, and then it's a completely different dog by itself. So that's many different versions of your dog. It's just like you, right? Or me, right? You know, we're different with each other than we would be with like our girlfriends or, you know, like a wife or something like that, right? You know, you have different faces, right? The many faces of God, right? That doesn't mean you're two-faced, right? That doesn't mean you're not genuine. That doesn't mean that you're trying to like pull a fast one on anybody, but you have to be different people in different times.
I feel like I call it prioritizing.
Sure.
Because you're prioritizing like relationships, right? There's different relationships, and like I feel like as you grow up, you're gonna understand like, okay, there's a certain way that we could just enjoy our time. Like I can have a deeper conversation, let's say, with you than I can with like, I don't know, some dude that, I don't know, it's surface level.
Or the guy at the bodega or something, right?
Someone that's super surface level, you know, like, oh, did you see that car, man? Like, oh, the wheels, like, I could bullshit around, have like the little like
those are fun too.
Those are fun too.
Sure.
But like they're different levels. So it's like, and so I'm just like, all right, like, and I also don't want to be like a fucking annoying dude that's just like, oh, well, do you know about this? You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes some people don't want to hear it, or they'll hear it, but it's not something that is ready for them at that time.
Yeah. Well, you know, nowadays, you know, society can't really permit the court jester, right? Like the silly guy or the funny guy, right? We always have to be so serious now.
Yeah.
Like you go into the bank,
Right.
Nobody's telling jokes at the bank. Why?
Yeah.
So serious,
Right.
right?
German.
You go in the bank and it's so stuffy in there.
Right.
When I go in the bank, I bring such a levity to this place because I just can't be here.
Right.
Like, it's promissory notes. It's a promise to pay. It's not even actual money.
Right.
Right? That's not like precious metals. That's not gold. Paper money that they print.
Right.
And they do that whenever they want, by the way.
Too much.
Sure.
Too often.
All right. So it's like, what real tangible value is this? Yeah. So why are we putting such a straighten up and, you know, gotta, you know, like it, we gotta bring that levity in life. So I'm with you on that. But it's like, you know, you go to these places and they put on you to be a certain way, like you're saying. You know, you gotta read the room, right? So it's like sometimes you can be silly and sometimes you can't. But what if you're never serious, but you're sincere?
I love that.
That's the way I live.
Yeah.
I live sincerely, not serious.
Right.
Because life, you're never getting out alive.
Right.
So why take it so seriously?
Right.
It's like the Joker, right?
Wow,
Like,
so
why
that's the first thing I thought about.
Right?
That's funny, yo.
Well, it's true though.
Yeah, so true. Look, let me stop you real quick.
Yeah,
I have
go.
a part in the podcast that I have every guest sign the draft.
Oh, I'd love to.
So
Do you have a specific place that you want me to
anywhere
go?
you
or-
want. Anywhere you want. You can choose anywhere you want. Don't even worry about like, oh, how about here? Whatever you want, bro. And on the green though, you'll be able to see it more.
All right.
Like than the blue.
I'm gonna go
I
right
need to
here.
get a different marker.
I'm gonna go right here, right in the front, right on the chest.
Go ahead, man. Fire. Oh, you got a nice script.
Thanks,
okay.
brother. Thanks,
Okay.
brother.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
Thanks, man.
That's a great little little hallmark, like a Hall of Legends or something.
You know what I mean? And it's also, I want that giraffe to be tatted. Like have a bunch of different names on it. I think it'll look cool. Look sick.
You're gonna have to get a giraffe tattoo now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, you're gonna have to get a giraffe tattoo.
Of Esperanza.
You're gonna have to.
Like, of just a different type of, like, that'd be cool.
It's set in stone now.
I got a part in the podcast also that I asked the guests, can you give me a question that I could bring out into society? And I go ask that question. It could be any question you want. It doesn't have to be directed to, like, anyone in particular. It's just a question.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you could look into the future and see the next 1,000 days, would it look like yesterday? And would that be leading you towards the life that you want to live?
If you could look into the future and see the next 1,000 days, would it look like yesterday? And would that be leading you towards the life you want to live?
Is it literally like saying, like, if I saw the future, just like doing what I'm saying?
So it's saying, if you could look into the future and see the next 1,000 days, right? Would it look like the same thing as yesterday? And would yesterday be like leading you towards the life you want to live? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, look. Honestly, I don't really think about that. I always thought, actually, no, I actually thought about that. Like how, like, if I can go in the past, that type of thing, and stuff, future.
If you can go into the past?
Yeah, and I always think about that, like, about the current and then the future.
Okay. All right, so you're starting to have reflection.
Yeah, it's
All right. I feel that. Thank you, man. Have a good one. Yo, appreciate you.
Sit.
How about you?
For me, everything that I do, it has purpose. It's the purpose that defines us. It's the purpose that creates the reason to wake up every day. And so I know in my heart, no matter what life's thrown at me, even if it's thrown the most difficult things at me very recently, I've still found a way to overcome and persevere. So, it's not having nervous breakdowns, it's having nervous breakthroughs. Because just when I thought that I couldn't go any further, I found a way. And when you can find a way, well, then you're unstoppable.
Right.
And then you can walk around with a peace and a clarity in your mind.
Right.
When you walk away from the 97%, that's hard to do. It's hard because now you're an outcast. But you're not an outcast for the wrong reasons. You're an outcast for the right reasons, because the only way to be a trailblazer is to go where the path is not there and create your own.
Path less followed by, or what is it? The Robert Frost.
Do not travel the path that's far traveled. It's the one that's less or not even there at all. Because then you're carving your own way.
On path.
I don't want to. I felt for a long time, that I was compelled to help others in certain ways, in certain elements in my life. But you know what? That left me unfulfilled. I was very selfless, like a Jedi, right? Like I only cared about others. But caring about myself first, now I'm able to care about others. But I was doing it the wrong way.
I see.
I was only caring about others, but not myself.
Yeah.
It's like I gave hope to people, but kept none for myself. And you can only live for 1 second without hope. You be what they call hopeless, right? And so that's where people get into despair. Because they lost hope.
Yeah, man.
They lost hope.
Right.
There's always a way, though.
There's always a way, though.
There's always a way. You just have to take. You have to take each moment and each day one at a time. Build up that momentum. Build up that traction. That habit. Right. When I'm working with clients, I always talk about habits, tendencies, and then the behavior that comes from that. Right. So what's the tendency of your habits? Right. And if they're not in line with the results that get you the behavior and the life that you want, well, then you have to make adjustments. You have to change. And we usually in life change for like 4 reasons, right? When you hurt enough that you have to, when you learn enough that you want to, when you see enough that you're inspired to, or when you receive enough that you're able to. That's the 4 ways in life that we change. Now, in life, when you are at different points of your life, different things happen in different moments. So I'm sure things happen to you that you hurt enough, right? Things have been done to you, hurt, right? So you have to change then. You got to, whether it's the relationships that we have, whether it's with friends or family, with jobs. If it hurts enough, you have to make a change, right? So it just depends on the context, right? And so in my life, I've had all of those, maybe all of them, maybe even all at once, or in a succession, one after the other, right? And it's like you're bobbing and weaving and trying not to get hit with that uppercut, right? But you know what? Life's inevitable. That's just my phone. But life is inevitable. It's going to happen to us, right? And so it's like, well, what happens when you're squeezed, right? I heard this recently, and I'm going to share it with you. So it's like when you squeeze an orange, orange juice comes out. You'll never get apple juice. You'll never get grapefruit juice. You only get orange juice. Now you take that metaphor and you apply it to us. What happens and what comes out of you when you're squeezed? Or what happens when I get squeezed? What comes out of me is resilience, determination, resourcefulness, poise, right? I love pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, right? It's just pressurized force. That's what makes a diamond.
Yeah.
And diamonds, well, at least that's what they say, are forever, right? So when you're squeezed, if what comes out of you isn't what you like, you can change. But an orange could never change to be something else. So a lot of times in life, we let these things that squeeze us define us. So the bad things that happen, which inevitably do,
Right.
we can't let them define us.
Yeah.
The traumas. You know, in the word triumph, it starts with try. So the only way to achieve triumph or to be triumphant is to try.
Yeah.
You must step out of the comfort zone, right? First, it's the comfort zone. Then it's fear, because you're leaving the comfort and your fear of the unknown, right? Then it's the learning, because there's always a learning process with anything.
Right.
Then it's the growth. And then the goals come. And then you go back and forth between learning and growth and learning, and then goals. And then they just start happening like fireworks in 4th of July. Pop, 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 goals.
That's true.
And it's like, well, how did that happen?
Right.
It's because you left that comfort. You know? So it's like, you know, I really started thinking about going into those cold plunges or taking really cold showers.
Yeah.
Because that's a challenge for the mind.
It is.
You know, and I really want to start doing it.
You want to get a comfortable warm shower, right? Because it's just easy.
Well, sure.
Right.
You know, I even go out in my backyard, and I've been in the wintertime, I've been trying to get back into my exercise routine, and I have like a cinder block that I lift.
Okay.
Right? And I lift a cinder block. I do deadlifts, and I do shoulder push,
Nice.
you know, and I just try to get back into form, but I do it in the cold, right? And so I'm challenging myself, not only physically, but mentally, right?
Yeah.
Being out there in that element, right? It's like Wim Hof, you know, the Iceman, right? You know, he teaches whole groups of people how to be in this sub-zero conditions in the climate, and the cold actually has regenerative properties. That's why like professional athletes always like wrap up in ice, and they have these like water jet ice machines that, you know, help with inflammation and with things like that. When you can shock the system like that, it like resets everything, and then your circadian rhythm, everything that you do every morning when you wake up, that routine in your internal system, it gets revitalized by the cold. So it's like, you know, everybody wants it to be warm outside. I actually like it outside.
Yeah.
So when I'm walking the dogs and it's like 20 degrees, that's the time of my life.
The dogs don't like it when it's too hot.
They don't.
They don't want to walk.
They really don't. Well,
Yeah.
they don't get to sweat like we do.
They sweat from their paws.
Yeah, they
That's
have
fucked up.
They
right?
sweat from their paws, and
Isn't
they
that
release
crazy?
heat from panting. Yeah,
That's so
it's wild,
crazy,
right?
yo.
Yeah, and so, you know, I always say this, like, you know, the world needs people like you and me. Needs people like you and me that will step out of that comfort zone and to go into a place where you might not be understood, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because then you have arrived. When people don't get you
Yeah.
and they feel like you're out there, that's good.
I know. I love that.
when they think you're out, like you're outside of the box, they want to be in the box because that's their little
Comfort zone.
conformity, right? Conformity is prison for your mind, right? And so when you can unlock the key to your mind, you've gone to a whole nother plane of existence entirely. Then and only then can you truly achieve the higher power, right? And so I know I have my higher power, but not in an arrogant way, but in a way that I've understood through my experience and through the wisdom, right? So it's like knowledge talks and wisdom listens, you know? So when, you know, when you're having conversations, either one or two things happen. Either they adjust to your energy or you adjust to theirs. It's like when you go for a walk with somebody, you know, you have to like try to find this like rhythm in this dance to merge the frequencies, right? So that's why when we see people and you get a bad vibe, you know, you get a funny feeling. It's your gut feeling. It's not your mind. It's your gut. Because your gut is closest to the ground. And the ground of being is what we all live on. Because we all live on the ground, right?
That's
but
true.
the dogs have 4 feet. So their ground of being, they're connected to the earth and the vibrations and the frequencies way better than we are.
Yeah, we have sneakers on and shoes and shit.
The rubber disconnects us from that.
Yeah.
So every chance I get, I'm barefoot.
Yeah?
Every chance I get, I'm taking my shoes off and putting in like touch grass, right?
Right.
Well, they make fun of us for that. That's a meme, right? Go touch grass. Yeah, go touch grass.
It does feel really good.
It does, because there's nutrients and enzymes in the soil that come through your feet, and you don't get them by wearing rubber shoes.
So true, man.
That's why you see all those indigenous tribes and all. They're not wearing shoes.
Yeah,
they're barefoot.
But they made other clothes.
Well, sure. Well, of course.
But that's a good point. But
Yeah.
like going on to your point, you know what I mean? Because like they could have made a shoe, right? They made all this other shit, but like they chose not to.
They understood. They understood even back then in those early tribes, early civilizations, that the soil was not just for the plants and the harvest. It was also for them too. You know, and so our feet. We need to connect to the electromagnetic fields in the earth, right? And so it's like your heart. Your heart is like it's like a wave of energy, right? And so when your heart beats, it emits this frequency. That's why when you can feel people close to you, you feel closeness with them.
Yeah.
Because it's your heart that it has this electromagnetic field.
What do you think? When you're walking down the street and someone's far away from you, but for whatever reason, you guys both look at each other at the exact same time. Doesn't even have to be sexual. It's just like, like, how did that happen? You know what I mean? Like, and not to say that you have the answer to that, right? But what are your thoughts on that?
So,
you know what I mean?
I feel like everybody that you meet in life is for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's to further have you go down the path that you're supposed to be on, right? So I don't believe in coincidence. You know, I believe you're put in a position to learn each and every day from each and every person and each and every interaction.
That's true.
Whether it's resisting or holding back, like we were talking about earlier, if somebody's not kind to you, and then that gives you an opportunity to have restraint, right? To not stoop to their level, right? Because lifting somebody up is really hard to do. But for somebody to bring you down,
Easy
takes
as fuck.
instant, right? If somebody's nasty to you, you can be nasty right back. But it takes even more willpower and mindfulness to remain who you're supposed to be and not go down to that level. So when you're saying like seeing somebody on the street, it's an opportunity for you to practice, right? And so practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes improvement. So you're improving yourself, each and every person that you come across, that you make eye contact with, or you do have a moment, a glance. And so you develop your personality in private so that it may serve you in public, right? So when you go out into the world, you've already formulated that here in your private space.
Right.
So when you go out there, that's where you showcase it. Right, so it's the tangibles, it's the daily rituals that you have, like you work out, you eat the right things, you do this and that to set you up for when you do go out there.
Right.
So then you are ready to put yourself on display. Because once you go out there, you better be ready, right? It's like the curtain's already back, and right, the whole audience is waiting. They got the popcorn, right?
Oh yeah.
And so like being in a city like this with us, this is like, it's the most unique place in the world.
It is.
It gives us an opportunity to practice that all the time with all different types of people from all different cultures and walks of life. So somebody that I might not even have any like relation to as far as like my history or my like family's history, like I might make a huge difference on like a Uber driver, right? A guy from a culture that has no relation to me at all. He and I have such a meaningful like interaction. He's like, wow.
Yeah. Appreciative.
He's like, wow, what a guy. Where'd you come from? Like you're out of this world. It's like, well, yeah, sure. It's I feel it's like the more you take on in life, the more rich you become. So if you take on the most responsibility that you can, the more meaningful your life becomes. Everyone wants to take little or to no responsibility for things. They just want things done and handed to them. But when you take on, it's like the more you serve in life, the richer you become. So like when I'm working with clients and I'm working with the dogs, I'm in service to them. My life is in service to the dogs. but that's not a life not well spent. That's a life of purpose, right?
That means the battery died.
Almost done?
No, that means the battery died.
On the camera?
On the camera, but we still have the audio running.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it in closing with a few things. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. I use that. That's a Dr. Seuss quote, and I used that the last time that I was at the Poetry Cafe, because I used to do some live open mic stuff.
Nice.
And I let it rip. And I remember when I got up on stage, they had no idea what was about to happen to them, right? And then I just spit bars, and they were like, whoa. And they were all coming up to me and saying like, man, like you just made my night, and you just touched me in a certain way. And so it's like, when I see people out in the street, I want to make that same, I want each person that when I walk by, that they feel that. So that they do have a glance with me, right? And so I can share that little light with them. So it's like the more light you shine is also the more shadows you cast. So you have to be aware of that, because not everybody's ready to be woken up, right? Out of their sleep, right?
Slumber.
They're not ready. But, over time, when you can identify that, you won't take it personally, right? So like if somebody does that to you and you try to share that light with them and they don't want it, don't take it personal.
Nah, man.
Just know.
Yeah, nah, I learned that.
Just know that God or the universe, however you want to paraphrase it, just know that it has every intent on seeing you become the best version of yourself. And all of the things that put you to where you are today, sitting here with me, is a result of that. And everything that happens after that is also
a result of that.
That's
right?
A fact, man. So every day that you've lived and that I've lived, ultimately led us sitting at this table together, having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Which is very intriguing.
It is intriguing. It's like, wow.
It's an intriguing thought.
It is funny.
I would love to have a part 2 once the camera comes back on.
Yeah. So, we gotta have a part 2. I gotta charge my actual camera, but definitely have you back.
I think we got some good stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely have you back though. But awesome. Where can the people find you?
So if you are on social media, it's petsbestfriendnyc.com.
I'm gonna clip it in too. So
there's that's my business, and then of course my personal account. I don't really spend too much time on that, so you can find me and my work and the dogs, which are always the star of the show. Yeah. Pets Best Friend NYC.
Thank you, man. So yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Boom. So yeah.
I can't trust no switching roadie, I be on my grown thing. Keep on moving, time be skipping, phone and going home. Same process, trust the progress, I be knowing where it's home. Man, free me, feel me, see